Welcome into Seahawks Today by Chat Sports. I'm Megan Payton. We've got some Seahawks offseason news and rumors to get into today, but first, we are almost there. We are almost at 24,000 subscribers, currently at 23,945. So I'm asking you, please help us out here at Seahawks Today. We are only a little over 50 away. You can be that 24,000th subscriber. We promise we are going to keep you updated on everything going on around Seattle all off season. Just help us out and make sure you are subscribed to our channel. So, of course, the Russell Wilson rumors are still continuing. We do not know what his plan is. So I think it is smart to at least look at what the Seahawks options are going to be in the event that Russell Wilson does not return. Now, FanSided did predict that the starting QB on each NFL team, and guess who he had for the Seahawks? He had Matt Corral as the starting Seahawks quarterback, predicted that Russell Wilson would get traded to Denver and picking Carroll in the NFL draft. That would be what Seattle would do. And so I'd say maybe this is happening. We don't know, but Matt Corral has obviously been high up in the mix of when we talk about best quarterbacks coming in to this draft class. And so you look at just what they in-depthly said about Matt Corral. This is Sayer Bettinger on Matt. He said, if you squint hard enough, you can see a little bit of Russell Wilson in Matt Corral. Prior to injury, Corral was one of the most exciting quarterbacks in college football, and the Seahawks could now get him at a time very reasonable price. I think when he's healthy, Corral could absolutely come in and be a solid playmaker for the Seahawks at the quarterback position. Trading Russell Wilson would replenish the team's depleted draft capital from the awful Jamal Adams trade, and acquiring a player like Corral could quickly reset things in Seattle. So Matt Corral would probably be the best draft option for Seattle. And just remember, if they were to get rid of Russell Wilson, yes, they would have first-round picks. So absolutely, they could get a guy like Matt Corral. Now, of course, after he suffered his injury, you start to think, what's his performance going to be like once he recovers? Is he going to be 100%? But you look at what he did over the past 2 years at Ole Miss, and I'd say it was impressive. Last 2 years, both years, he put up over 3,000 yards. He had 29 passing touchdowns in 2020 and 20 as well in 2021. He's been pretty consistent, I'd say, in 21. But you look at what he did in 2020, he had 14 interceptions. So a vast improvement there with only 5 this year. He had 11 rushing touchdowns in 2021. Meanwhile, in 2020, he had 4. You can look at these stats for yourself and just see how Matt Corral has done. Now, clearly you expect guys in the college level to improve year by year. They're either going to make it or break it. Matt Corral has stood out, been a guy that is definitely in the talks as we start to look ahead to 2022. Now, is it the best option for Seattle? No. Clearly, the greatest option would be if they, got Aaron Rodgers, or if I'd even say, and I know sometimes you guys say Jimmy Garoppolo, but clearly the ideal situation is to keep Russell Wilson. But in the case that this is not happening, should Seattle draft a quarterback if Russ is going away? Type Y for yes or type N for no. This is our pinned comment. So I want to hear what you guys think on the draft prospects this year. All right, another rumor we are hearing about is, should the Seahawks consider signing Mo Alie-Cox? PFF article said there is going to be one free agent each team should pursue this offseason, and the Seahawks guy they had was Alie-Cox. Now, I actually hadn't thought too much about him and fitting in with Seattle, but I could see this being a fit. The Seahawks production at tight end hasn't been fantastic. And this year, with Gerald, Everett, with Will Dissly, there were moments where it was good. There were pockets where I felt like they were improving, but also it's something that I think Seattle could reconsider as they start looking ahead to how they want their roster to look in 2022. And so, of course, the rumors are just now starting. There's going to be so much free agency talk, of course, draft talk. So now's the time, guys. You do not want to miss out on what's going on in Seattle. They might not be calling it a rebuild year, but there's definitely going to be some rebuilding happening in Seattle. So if you have not, go to youtube.com/Seahawks TV, click the big red button. Make sure you guys are in the know with the Seahawks. But we look at the tight ends in Seattle. As we said, Gerald, Everett, Will Dissly, they've really been clearly the targets as far as tight end goes. Colby Parkinson, yeah, we've seen him a bit, but really it's been Will Dissly and Gerald Everett. Now, the interesting thing is both of these guys are free agents. So is Seattle going to, kind of bank on both of them, hoping that they both can grow? We can see more improvement from them. This year, it was kind of average. You look at Gerald Everett was clearly the number one tight end with 48 receptions. Meanwhile, Dissly had 21, Parkinson 5. Yards, Gerald Everett had 478. Meanwhile, Dissly had 231, 4 touchdowns for Everett, 1 for Dissly. But Gerald Everett kind of got known a little bit for a couple of his terrible fumbles. Now, he did improve later in the season after that terrible game where he fumbled 3 times. And so the Seahawks are left in a situation where they've got to figure out what they're doing with their own free agents and with the free agents out around the league. So my opinion is I'd keep Everett over Dissly. Now, you might disagree with that, but I do think that Everett has a lot of potential. I think that especially if Russ is staying in Seattle, I think he likes connecting with Gerald Everett. We saw him target him a lot more than Dissly. Now, you could say, all right, keep Everett, then replace Dissly with ALIE-COX. That's not a terrible option. I think that could help shift things up, change it up for the tight end position in Seattle. ALIE-COX, not enormously fantastic, but has been a standout guy, I'd say. With the Colts, he had 24 receptions for 316 yards, 4 touchdowns this year. Kind of similar in 2020, yet there was only 2 touchdowns. And in 2019, a significant drop, not getting as many targets, not getting as many reps, clearly 8 receptions, 93 yards. And in 2018, he only played 9 games, had 133 yards and 2 touchdowns. I just like the idea of the Seahawks changing things around in Seattle. They've got to find ways to freshen up this offense, give Russ a different guy to throw to if they're going to work on the offensive line, which we're going to get into. But look at this tight end group. So I'll ask you guys now, get your votes in. Should the Seahawks sign Mo Alie-Cox? Go to the comments right now and type S for sign, or if you don't like it, you want to keep with the guys we have or go with someone new, type P for pass. Now, guys, Seahawks, as we know, unfortunately, are not in the playoffs right now, but that does not mean that you can't get some skin in the game with the games that are going on or with Russell Wilson prop bets. So if you guys are going to be betting at all, make sure you are checking out the sports book that we love here over at Chat Sports. That's BetUS. If you guys go to chatsports.com/bet, use the promo code Seahawks125. You'll get that 125% deposit bonus. Really, it means you get $125 of free money. So you put up $100, it turns into $225. Now you've got $125 to go crazy. Bet on whatever you'd like. I like betting on the Russ 2022 team odds. Right now, Seahawks still at the lead, -650. But if you do think that Russ might be leaving, going somewhere else, you can look at this list. They've got Broncos as the top, other team with +700, Steelers +850, Raiders +850, Bears +850, and a lot of other teams kind of in this mix. So this is a fun bet if you guys want to get some off-season betting on. And, of course, there's a ton of playoff options that you guys can look at. But that's chatsports.com/bet, and you've got to use the promo code Seahawks125. All right, speaking of draft, we are going to look at what Pro Football Network's 2022 mock draft looked like. Now, again, let me just tell you, this is what Pro Football Network's mock draft looked like. We can do our own mock draft here, kind of say what we think is best. We probably will do that, so another reason to be subscribed. But let's take a peek at what they think. They probably assume Russell Wilson staying with the guys that they have going first. Right now, they have Perrion Winfrey being the round 2 target, number 41 overall. If you forgot, Seahawks do not have a first round pick because of the Jamal Adams trade. So Perrion Winfrey is a really good option in my opinion. He's been probably I'd say obviously the best defensive lineman for Oklahoma this year. He had 23 tackles, 11 tackles for loss, 5.5 sacks, 1 forced fumble. I would love to see Seattle get a guy like Winfrey. Unfortunately, I don't know if he's going to be around this late. I don't know if he is a first-round guy, but I could see him going very early in the second round. So Perrion Winfrey is someone that I definitely think Seattle should keep an eye out for. He's been very dominant at OU. He's been a guy that has really stood out. So I'd love to see Seahawks go that route if the case stands that Russell Wilson is in Seattle. So we look at their round 3 pick. Their next guy they have is Alec Lindstrom, offensive line. We keep talking about offensive linemen, how they need to improve upon this year. So Lindstrom is a center. His brother is actually a guard for the Falcons. So this is interesting because if they were to go this route, then what are they doing with Ethan Posick? Are they getting rid of him, taking on Lindstrom? Maybe that's what they consider there. Their next pick in the 4th round is Rasheed Walker, an offensive tackle at Penn State. This is another massive guy. He's 320 pounds, 6'6", but he does move really well for his size. So, of course, you're kind of gambling a little bit with offensive linemen coming out of college. You never know how well that transition is going to be for them as they move on to the NFL. But this offensive line room for Seattle does need some improvement. Ethan Posick, free agent. So if they did go the Alec Lindstrom route, all right, you probably wouldn't re-sign Posick. Then you look at Gabe Jackson, Damian Lewis. Those guys are still in contract. Brandon Sheldo and Dwayne Brown, they have been 2 guys that Seattle, I'd say, rumors, they keep talking about what's going to happen with them too. Now, Dwayne Brown, I'd say most likely the Seahawks end up bringing back. That's just my opinion. Brandon Sheldo, I could see them getting rid of, and then maybe that's where a guy like Rasheed Walker comes in. I don't know how Seattle plans on approaching this draft and how they plan on approaching their own free agents. So that's why we promise to keep you updated every time we hear something new going around Seattle. And now their last 4th round pick that PFN has the Seahawks choosing is Alontae Taylor, cornerback from Tennessee. I think this would be a good option. Of course, now we're getting into the later rounds, guys. So, is he the best cornerback in this draft? No, but he has been decently impressive at Tennessee. 60 tackles, 6 pass breakups, 2 interceptions, and 1 forced fumble in 2021. He played in 12 games. So we talk about Seattle's own cornerback room with DJ Reed. What's going to happen with Trey Brown, Bless Austin? They've got a lot of free agent discussions going on in that room. Now, the cornerback room did step up a bit. And so my opinion is I'd almost rather them leave the cornerback room alone as far as draft goes. Maybe get a guy like in the 7th round or something, but really try to target one of those big guys in free agency or do a trade. I mean, could you imagine having a guy like Xavier Howard in Seattle with DJ Reed? That's the route I'd like to see Seahawks go, more so with the cornerback room. But again, this is just Pro Football Network's mock draft. So I ask you guys this: how would you grade their mock draft? Go to the comments right now and scale this A, B, C, D, or F. Let me know what you think in the comments, and then we will give you our mock draft coming up on a future Seahawks video.